YouTube, bro, check it out, man. Hey, man, to my people that work, to my people that go to work, to my people that just need long videos to watch before they go to sleep, my boy Trap Lord Ross is back. I'm late. He dropped this joint 3 days ago on Patreon. I don't know if he dropped it on the tube. Let me go see if he dropped it on the tube. If he dropped it on the tube, y'all might have to wait. Because I'm not doing my boy like that. Not doing my boy like that. Nope, he did drop it on the tube. But let's get into the video. New Orleans Deadliest Gangs. Let's go.
I'm here in Holly Grove, one of the most infamous neighborhoods in New Orleans, and also the place that birthed arguably the greatest rapper to ever live, in my opinion, Lil Wayne. But unfortunately for the young rappers that are growing up in New Orleans today, the streets are dangerous and treacherous. And for a lot of people, there's a fine line between making it as a gangster rapper and falling victim to the streets as a gangster. So in this video, I'm going to break down to you some of the most important people coming out of the city, some of the people that made it, some of the people that didn't, and give you all of the history of some of the most dangerous places in the city to be a rapper. New Orleans is widely recognized as one of the top tourist destinations in America. It's famous for its unique architecture that blends European, French, Spanish, and American influences in its iconic French Quarter. It's got an infamous music scene, and it's the city that really put jazz on the map. And its world-class food brings together tastes from France, Spain, Vietnam, and all over the world, including Africa, making for some of the most delicious meals I personally have experienced. But that's not the reason why I decided to travel to New Orleans. No, the reason I went there is because under the surface of the culture, New Orleans for years has had a...
I'm gonna pause real quick. This boy Trap Lord Ross been moving around cities left and right. He went to Sacramento, where the shootout at the party happened.
Dark reputation as one of the most violent and deadly cities in America.
Tonight, New Orleans is a city in crisis.
Police are looking for leads.
Extremely violent crime wave.
The teenage boy is now dead.
Shot and killed overnight.
Dubbed the murder capital of the country.
They got us all again. They got you too.
What the hell?
They almost kill me.
But unlike some of the other cities often ranked amongst the most dangerous in America, like Detroit, Memphis, and of course the capital of Louisiana, Baton Rouge, New Orleans in recent years hasn't seen many gangster rappers making it out of the streets. Decades ago, the city was famous for all of the rappers that came out of the streets there, from Master P, Soulja Slim, Juvenile, Birdman, and of course possibly the greatest rapper of all time, Lil Wayne. And today the city has no shortage of street rappers who are both lyrically talented and with gritty backstories, some of the most exciting street rappers coming out of the city being as young as 15 years old. But because of that harsh environment they're growing up in, a lot of these artists are often living extremely dangerous lifestyles at a very young age. And unfortunately, that means in recent years, some of the most promising rappers coming out of New Orleans pretty much end up dead or in jail before they ever even have the chance to truly break into the gangster rap game, let alone actual adulthood. So in this video, I'm going to be deep diving into the New Orleans rap and drill scene and uncovering some of the unknown and tragic stories of some of the city's most promising rappers who were unfortunately caught up in some of the deadliest gang wars New Orleans and America has seen in decades.
And that's Swamp Stories. Let's get into it. I ain't hip. Hold on. Whoa, hold on. I might go over here. Let me go over here for this episode. I'm gonna be bouncing back and forth.
My journey in New Orleans began in the 7th Ward, where I visited the hood of one of the most promising rappers New Orleans has seen in recent years, Bash Out Teddy. I'm here in the 7th Ward, home to a crew known as the Loyal Brothers, who were getting some serious motion in the music game, even being co-signed by Louisiana's most popping artist in this generation, NBA Youngboy. And for a minute, their most promising artist, Bash Out Teddy, was looking like he might actually be able to get to the top of the music game. But unfortunately, it seemed like his antics in the street would end up cutting that short. From allegedly wearing the same outfit on a drill as he wore in a music video to ultimately catching a serious murder charge, his story is unfortunately an example of just how quickly things can go left in the streets of New Orleans. So to truly understand how this story unfolded, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning, to Teddy's childhood and a traumatic experience that sent him down an extremely dark path in life at a very young age. Because in 2009, when Teddy was just 5 years old, his big brother James was brutally murdered at just age 15. He was allegedly stabbed 49 times by his friends who accused him of stealing a gun. They would leave his lifeless body at an abandoned house where his mother would later find him. Over a decade later, in January 2023, one of his alleged killers was granted a retrial, but he would ultimately end up pleading guilty to 1 count of accessory after the fact and was ultimately released after receiving credit for time already served. Teddy, on the other hand, even as a child, was already deeply invested into the streets. But before we get to what happened in the streets, we've got to talk about Teddy's talent in the rap game. It seems like he started rapping around 2019 when he was only 15 years old, when he and his friends would begin to release songs on SoundCloud. These were already filled with very concerning lyrics that pointed to Teddy and his friends being deep in the streets, despite not even being old enough to buy cigarettes. Their first song, Blame Us, was all about Teddy and his friends rapping how they're the ones that get blamed for the homicides in the city. The crew began to call themselves the Loyal Brothers, or LB, with the crew's name having a double meaning for both their music collective and an alleged street gang based mainly in the infamous 7th Ward, one of the most dangerous areas of the city. Coming into 2020, Teddy would also begin to drop music videos. Now, it's not exactly clear how him and his friends got affiliated with YoungBoy, his NBA Never Broke Again collective, but already in his very first music video, Teddy would feature the NBA rapper Michi Baby, while him and his friends can be seen wearing slime green Loyal Brothers hoodies. Green is famously the color of YoungBoy's 4K Trey gang, and this video from the very start would imply that the Loyal Brothers were official affiliates of YoungBoy's Street Alliance. According to some online rumors, the connection to NBA came through an older man who was something like a manager to Teddy and the other Loyal Brothers artists. But what's also clear is that Teddy had apparently had a connection with YoungBoy behind the scenes for quite some time. There's photos of Teddy together with YoungBoy and his crew that were seemingly taken several years before Teddy would even drop music. In interviews, Teddy himself has been vague about how he first became acquainted with 4K Trey, but clearly this was a close connection.
Oh, so what's your affiliation with? It was for like the NBA.
And that game. Legitimately the same as that game.
You know, tell us just like, you know, about how that came about.
That came about from us getting around each other. We were being introduced.
Just like blood brothers.
And we locked in after that, like on some intertwined type shit on the studio, you know.
In 2020, Teddy would drop numerous music videos and songs, which included several more features from NBA artists, including the music video for Holding Court featuring NBA Herm, and the video for Raging featuring BBG Baby Joe, as well as a video for the track Scars that featured the rapper No Cap, who at the time was still signed to YoungBoy's NBA label. The Loyal Brothers would also post photos of themselves hanging out with YoungBoy himself during this time, showing that their ties reached all the way to the top of the Never Broke Again crew. And Teddy would also drop numerous videos with his partners from New Orleans, like the song Strapped Up with the rapper Young Josh, where they can be seen in their hood in the 7th Ward, and the song Bold with the rapper Spitter 7, where they can be seen once again rocking the slime green bandanas of YoungBoy's 4K Trey crew. Coming into 2021, and the rest of the Loyal Brothers would make a cameo in Quando Rondo's music video for Red Eye. Quando, of course, being signed to YoungBoy's NBA label, and this track only releasing a few months after the tragic fight between Quando Rondo and King Von, where Quando's friend Lil Tim shot King Von dead. The video begins with an intro where Quando says that they're smoking purple babies, a reference to his ops back in Savannah, Georgia, before adding that they also have a famous pack, a possible reference to King Von. With the message behind the appearance of Teddy and the Loyal Brothers in this video probably being to signal that Quando was well connected in the streets, with shooters not only in Georgia, but all the way to Louisiana, New Orleans, and Baton Rouge as well. A secret coded message to let the world and Lil Durk and his OTF crew know that if they try him, he's got shooters on deck.
Y'all boys smoking. You know we smoke purple, baby, though. We got famous pack too, bitch. Come get at me.
In fact, it's even possible that behind the scenes, King Von himself had become aware of the Loyal Brothers before his untimely death due to the rivalry with YoungBoy and NBA. Because in his song Mine 2, a King Von diss aimed at YoungBoy, Von would rap about having beef in NOLA, aka New Orleans, Louisiana, without even knowing it. At the time, many fans likely believed he was
sorry, go back. I ain't need Pete the lyric.
Yeah, because in his
I got beef for I can't write the joke like fine. I got beef up in NOLA, nigga, and ain't know it. Heard you rapping that gangster shit, but now you gotta show
song
me.
Mine 2, a King Von diss aimed at YoungBoy, Von would rap about having beef in NOLA, aka New Orleans, Louisiana, without even knowing it. At the time, many fans likely believed he was referring directly to YoungBoy and used NOLA to refer to Louisiana in general, but perhaps more likely he was actually referring to Teddy and his crew, who were undoubtedly picking sides hard in YoungBoy's beefs. Also in 2022, No Cap would shout out Teddy in his song Ocean Gold, showing that at this point the Loyal Brothers were clearly established as the certified muscle of NBA and 4K Trey, and this reputation didn't come out of nowhere, as the Loyal Brothers were involved in street wars with several other gangs in their hometown that had turned deadly. In 2022, at the time 18-year-old Loyal Brothers affiliate Young Josh, real name Joshua Williams, was arrested for the murder of a 16-year-old, Caron Hoskins, which he had allegedly committed while out on bond for an earlier 2020 attempted murder of another 16-year-old. However, it seems that the DA would ultimately refuse to prosecute Josh for this homicide. Meanwhile, Bash Out Teddy was still releasing music and maintaining his close ties with NBA and 4K Trey, dropping music videos for the track Chopper City Flow featuring Young Josh and NBA Ben 10, and the track Top Dog that featured Quando Rondo, meaning at this point probably the only NBA artist he hadn't collaborated with was YoungBoy himself. YoungBoy unfortunately wouldn't end up doing a feature with Teddy, but he would make an appearance in Teddy's 19th birthday vlog in December 2022, personally wishing him a happy birthday during a FaceTime call.
Happy birthday, bitch. I hope you enjoying yourself over there, nigga. Hold that shit down.
You know appreciate that.
Talk that shit, Top.
But unfortunately, Teddy wasn't just remaining active on the music side, but also in the streets, where he would allegedly end up causing an untold amount of death and destruction in 2023 alone. On the 28th of February 2023, 32-year-old Bradley Glapion, a cameraman specialized in shooting music videos for up-and-coming rappers in New Orleans, was shot and killed in his car at the intersection of Lake Forest Boulevard and Bundy Road.
Well, new this morning, a man is dead after a shooting in the West Lake Forest neighborhood of New Orleans East. NOPD says it happened just before 9:30 last night at the intersection of Bundy and Lake Forest Boulevard. When officers arrived, they found a man with multiple gunshot wounds in a vehicle. He was taken to a local hospital where he later died. If you have any information on this shooting, call Crime Stoppers.
A few months later, on the 3rd of April, security cameras in the 3500 block of Roger Williams Street captured a chaotic scene around 9:13 a.m. as 3 shooters opened fire on a man fixing his car. The victim, who appeared to have been hit in the left foot during the initial shootout, could then be seen limping towards his house in an attempt to reach safety. While one of the shooters, wearing red and black pants, can be seen
he's running him down
all the way inside as he continued to fire a handgun fitted with a drum magazine. Thankfully, this man would end up surviving what seemed like a planned assassination attempt, while the New Orleans police would release the security footage to the public in the hopes of getting tips about the suspects. The clothing of the main shooter would turn out to be critical, as online sleuths would later realize that Bash Out Teddy had seemingly worn the exact same pants in a recent music video, a video where he was also seen holding a very similar looking handgun with the drum magazine. Also around this time, NBA Youngboy would release his song F the Industry Part 2, where he rapped how his hitter came all the way from New Orleans and left someone dead at the apartments. According to some theories, these lyrics may point to the September 22 murder of Youngboy's Baton Rouge rival, rapper Seven Hardaway from the Top Boy Gorilla Crew, who Youngboy and his 4K Trey gang had been in a deadly war with for years, as Hardaway was indeed shot and killed at an apartment complex called Sherwood Place. Ultimately, these rumors weren't proven to be true, but the April 2023 attempted murder that was caught on tape would eventually lead Bash Out Teddy to be in serious trouble with the law. But before the police could even catch up with him, he would allegedly be involved in yet another murder, this one being the most tragic of them all. The victim wasn't even the intended target, but 17-year-old mother Leah Perry was ultimately gunned down by a stray bullet during an attempted drive-by shooting on July the 7th, 2023 in the 4300 block of North Villaire Street.
The NOPD responds to 2 separate homicides within about an hour. One happened in the St. Claude neighborhood, the other in New Orleans East.
And here's what we know about that first shooting. A woman that dies from a shooting in the St. Claude neighborhood, and it happened in the 4300 block of North Villeray Street around 7 tonight. And they say a woman suffered at least 1 gunshot wound to her body. She was pronounced dead on the scene.
Teddy's reputation at this point was rising quickly due to his alleged involvement in these incidents, and not just in New Orleans, but also amongst his NBA and 4K Trey affiliates in Baton Rouge and beyond. This meant that Youngboy and his friends were seemingly also taking on the beefs of Teddy and his Loyal Brothers crew in New Orleans. In fact, during 2023, a beef would indeed begin between Youngboy and perhaps the brightest star to come out of New Orleans in recent years, Rob 49. According to some rumors, this beef was actually related to the fact that Teddy's Loyal Brothers weren't messing with the hood that Rob hails from. This being the infamous Iberville projects, where the last original public housings in New Orleans stood until the early 2010s, a spot that I actually visited while I was in the city. So possibly the most commercially successful street rapper coming out of New Orleans right now is Rob 49. Now, he gets his nickname Rob 49 from the fact that he grew up in the 4th and the 9th ward of New Orleans. Now, right now, I'm standing outside one of the old buildings of the Iberville projects where he hails from. And interestingly, just like how we see in Chicago, a lot of the original project buildings were actually knocked down. People have been displaced. There's been gentrification. And as we see in Chicago, that often leads to a lot of the violence, a lot of people being pushed out of their original communities into other ones. And that's where friction ends up happening. And unfortunately, it's rumored that one of the reasons that Rob 49 would actually never be able to work with Youngboy is because of Youngboy's association with the Loyal Brothers, who I discussed earlier in this video. And unfortunately, Rob 49's crew doesn't really see eye to eye with those guys, the Loyal Brothers. So a lot of people are very, very sad that that's the reason that Rob might never do a song with Youngboy. But I just wanted to come here and show you that, just let you know, a lot of these problems with displacements and projects being knocked down and people being pushed out, this happens in every city, from Chicago to New Orleans. We've talked about it in the Bronx and even London. So I hope that gives you a little bit more understanding of the background as to why some things get so bad in these communities. So Quando Rondo would actually make the beef between NBA and Rob 49 known publicly in his March 2023 song 50, where he dissed Rob with a clever wordplay, saying he doesn't F with 49, but he'll be quick to rob you for your chains, before shouting out Bash Out Teddy and rapping that he's gripping Dracos with him in the 7th ward. Given how locked in Teddy seemed to be with NBA and 4K Trey crews at this time, it seemed only a matter of time before he would officially become part of Youngboy's label, potentially taking his music career to the very top. But unfortunately, the streets would soon catch up with him, because later that same year, in October 2023, Teddy, real name Kenneth Salisbury, Salisbury, was arrested in connection with the attempted murder case that had been caught on camera, and it wouldn't take long before the police began linking him to other murders, like the slayings of Bradley Glapion and Leah Perry too.
NOPD says the suspect in a July shooting death of a 17-year-old girl is already in custody for another killing and a third shooting that wounded a man. And here's what we know tonight. Police announced this afternoon that they booked 20-year-old Kenneth Salisbury in connection with the teen's death. Leah Perry was shot multiple times near the intersection of North Villeray and Lesseps. And detectives say he's also a suspect in the February 28th shooting in New Orleans East that killed a 32-year-old Bradley Glapion and an April 4th shooting that wounded a man. Salisbury now faces a charge of second-degree murder for that death, as well as another second-degree murder charge and a charge of attempted second-degree murder.
Despite these extremely serious charges, Teddy was still granted bond, which in total amounted to around $1.5 million, meaning roughly $150,000 in cash would be required to secure his release. And yet, despite having extremely wealthy friends like Youngboy, no one apparently stepped forward to post the bond. And while sitting behind bars, Teddy has unfortunately continued to rack up an extensive list of new charges, the most serious one stemming from an incident where Teddy and 2 other inmates allegedly stabbed someone in jail.
Just for allegedly stabbing an inmate inside OJC last Wednesday. Arrest records allege that several inmates held on the 3rd floor of the jail ran inside a cell and then assaulted Andrew Broderick. The records allege the victim was taken to UMC for his injuries with about 10 to 12 stab wounds on his body. The 3 suspects are identified as Kenneth Salisbury, Alquan Johnson, and Jermaine Jones. They all face 3 counts of stabbing, illegal possession of a weapon, and possession of contraband in a jail.
Teddy wasn't the only Loyal Brothers member who would be arrested on serious charges either, as the other promising rapper Young Josh would also go down on federal drug and gun charges, followed by several other Loyal Brothers affiliates. And currently, it seems like most of this crew's members are either locked up or laying low. Unfortunately, for many of the young rappers coming out of New Orleans, prison seems to function like a revolving door, because short before Teddy begun his violent spree that would eventually put him behind bars, another very promising teenage rapper had just seen his own rise to fame cut short by violence in prison.
Story of app. What? Allah lit?
AIA Lit was one of the most promising young rappers coming out of New Orleans, building a serious name for himself in the industry at just 15 years old. But even with some of the most prestigious industry connections in the entire city, with people like Birdman on his side, unfortunately, he couldn't leave the streets behind. And it would be here on the 2900 block of Monterey Court in the Terrytown community where he would unfortunately end up catching a serious case of murder, which would unfortunately derail his career. AIA Lit is another young rapper from New Orleans who appeared to be on the path to rap stardom, but just like NBA Youngboy's protege and the alleged shooter, Bash Out Teddy, the streets would ultimately drag him back down too, just as it seemed like he was about to make it. Just like Teddy, AIA Lit also has connections to the 7th Ward where he spent his early years, but later in life, he would become affiliated with another hood on the west bank of the Mississippi River, known as the Cutoff, located in the far back of the Algiers neighborhood, also known as the 15th Ward. This is the only neighborhood on the west bank that belongs to New Orleans, while the rest belongs to the unincorporated Jefferson Parish.
Hello world. All right, where you from?
I'm gonna clear it up right now, cause nigga be, you know, nigga from that 7th Ward, brother. That's what nigga from. But I rep that Cutoff, cause you know that's what I became AIA Lit at. That's me. Like that's why I became AIA Lit at Cutoff. See what I'm saying? So that's what I rep. So when nigga ask me like, where you from? I say the Cutoff. But you know, the niggas out there who really know me, they be like, oh. You know where you from? I'm like, I know where I'm from, you know, but I know what I put on for too. See what I'm saying? I'm an even elder. This is what it is. Yeah, I eat.
Besides repping their hood, Lit and the other youths from the Cutoff crew would also rep small cliques, like one known as the Apes in Algiers, aka AIA. This clique also including other talented rappers like AIA Mike, also known as PNF Mike. The youths from the Cutoff used to be friends with other kids from the other end of Algiers, a place that used to be home to the William J. Fisher housing development, better known simply as the Fisher Projects.
Let me stress y'all out right fast with this New Orleans hood history lesson on the only housing project in New Orleans that's on the West Bank. We call it the Fisher. Now, the Fisher Project was built in 1965 in Algiers. We call it the 1.5 or the 15th Ward. It's named after William J. Fisher, who worked for the Housing Authority in New Orleans at the time. The Fisher Project was real close-knit because it was one 13-story building and 14 3-story buildings, all low income. Normally, I'd say the crack moved in the 80s, but in the Fisher Project, it was mostly heroin and PCP by the 80s. Call it Click'em juice. And the Fisher had a problem with the police all the time because the police got killed back there in 1980,
police?
and then in 81, 7 police came back there and killed 4 people. It was good people in the Fisher Project too, but in the 90s, the crime was legendary, so I couldn't go see them. Like the rest of the projects, they blew the Fisher up and put a housing community called the Fisher right there with all low-income housing. So if you in New Orleans and you come to this sign and say General de Gaulle and you get off, make sure you go left. Because on the right is the Fisher Project, and they got some 150 boys that'll send you back the other way.
Although the original housing
I ain't going to New Orleans. Forget that.
The area, which is still referred to as the Fisher, remains home to more low-income housing, a hood known as the 150.
How deep does the 150 is? Does the 150 represent the whole Fisher, or is it a certain era? How does the 150 for the Fisher?
This shit, the whole thing. The whole thing, because every generation going, like from my generation took on a generation problems prior to us. And then it just trickled down.
I know Baby Josh, y'all call him Shada, but I know him, and I know you and him is 2 different generations. Right. So if you repping the 150 shit, he repping the 150 shit, I was just assuming it must be a whole Fisher.
Members from Fisher, aka 150, also rep smaller cliques like YGS, aka Young Glock Slingers, and 5PF. The grim meaning behind this name I'll explain to you later in the video. This hood has had its fair share of rappers too, such as Big Reek 150, Crazy Tigo 150, Liz 4L, Great White Styles, and LaFranc 5, just to name a few. And back in the day, rappers from 150 and Cutoff used to do music together, like this 2019 song Drill Team by PNF Mike from Cutoff and Pour One Up from 150. Unfortunately though, it seems that coming into 2020, as the COVID-19 pandemic spread across the world and violence surged in all the major American cities, including New Orleans, these two hoods would end up having a major falling out, which would lead to some seriously tragic consequences. On the 11th of May 2020, at around 7:20 p.m, 23-year-old James Deem, known as Jigger, was out for a family get-together in the 2000 block of LaBouffe Street, right in the heart of the Fisher, when shooters would drive in front of the crowd and open fire, killing not only James, but also his 3-year-old little brother, Izaha Adams, while injuring their mother, who was trying to get their toddler to safety. The shooters would attempt to flee the area in their car, but a police officer quickly became aware of the situation and took chase. And near the intersection of General Meyer Avenue and Holiday Drive, they would crash their vehicle into a utility pole. This would be followed by 4 people bailing out of the car, 2 of them forcing their way into another car at gunpoint, committing literal Grand Theft Auto and continuing the chase. But the police would follow this car to the parking lot of a store about 2 blocks away too, where the duo would then try to escape on foot again, at which point this police officer would chase and catch one of them, 19-year-old Ron J. Stedman. Ron J., better known as Trap by his friends in the Cutoff, was not a rapper himself, but he'd made appearances in music videos of rappers from his hood, like in the PNF Mike January 2020 video for his song Free Ghetto Child, where he can be seen making a statement against snitching.
Niggas be rats, we don't never rat. Right. All facts. No rats allowed. Can't cut a neck cut if you ain't tough, nigga.
However, when it all came down to it, it appeared that Trap was not so opposed to cooperating after all, as paperwork later posted online shows that he initially denied knowing the identities of the other suspects, before eventually seeming to agree with the officer about who they were. Eventually, 2 more members from the Cutoff would be charged with these murders, including Rodney Stedman, the brother of Trap, and Razak Adekunle. Meanwhile, following the double murder, members of 150 paid tribute to their friend James, with their young rapper LaFranc 5 dedicating the song This Struggle to him, and rapping about how he was going to ball hard for James every chance he got. But unfortunately, Frank was talking about basketball. And when this song was released on the 17th of August, 150 had allegedly already gotten their get back, because a few weeks earlier on August the 2nd, at around 6:39 p.m, 18-year-old Charles Sparkman, better known as D-Red by his friends in the Cutoff, were walking through his hood in the 2800 block of Kent Drive, and someone would approach him and open fire, shooting him fatally before fleeing the area. This was a particularly devastating loss for Cutoff, as D-Red was not known to be in the streets, but rather he worked for UPS and was apparently about to go to college, with his brother, Big Guapo, later rapping in a song how D-Red was a scholar while he was the one in the streets. Red's death also hit AIA Lit particularly hard too, and in a post on Instagram, he said he felt personally responsible for what had happened, implying how Red had nothing to do with the beef against 150, before vowing that from that moment on, he would be ready to put his life on the line for his fallen friend. Red's killers were never caught, but in online rumors, particularly 2 members of 150 have been connected to it, including the rapper LaFranc 5 and a member called Fresh. But unfortunately for them, in the streets of New Orleans, what goes around tends to come around quickly, and the following month, on September the 10th, the 150 duo of LaFranc 5 and Fresh, along with a 3rd member, the rapper Pour One Up, who had once done a song together with the Cutoff rapper PNF Mike, were on the other side of the Mississippi River at a residential house in the 4100 block of Rain Drive that was being used as a recording studio. Their session would come to an end around 9:30 p.m, and the trio would step outside the house, but sadly they wouldn't get far, and it seems that at least one shooter was outside waiting for them, and they would immediately open fire. Their bullets would kill 17-year-old LaFranc 5, real name Frank Bedell, as well as 19-year-old Fresh, real name Khalil Allen, and 19-year-old Pour One Up, real name Horsham Miller. The initials of these 3 eventually forming the new name for the previously mentioned clique, 5PF, with P standing for poor and F standing for frank and fresh.
Tell us a little about what 5PF mean. What that mean?
What that mean?
Bring 5.
I'm
following up.
Okay.
Straight jotting notes in my head.
Be fresh.
So I know what's going on.
Besides the trio, a man would also be injured during this incident, and as the police arrived to the scene soon after, they would immediately arrest 2 people, a 19-year-old man and a 15-year-old boy, on gun charges. A few days later, local news would report that the 15-year-old had been charged for the shooting, while the 19-year-old was only hit with gun charges. The 15-year-old would turn out to be a member from the cutoff, known as AIA 6, real name Jaharin Moton, who was charged as an adult for the 3 murders and 2 attempts despite his young age at the time of the crime. However, in some online rumors, AIA Lit has also been connected to this incident, and in his songs he's dropped some pretty suspicious lyrics, like referring specifically to catching the ops who killed D-Red, these allegedly being LaFranc 5 and Fresh, who both lost their lives in that triple murder. Moton would eventually be sentenced on 3 manslaughter charges and 2 aggravated battery charges, getting just 15 years in prison, while AIA Lit has never officially been connected to this incident. But while it's safe to say that Lit was staying active in the streets during 2020, his music career also begun to flourish that year too, as he would drop numerous music videos that now have hundreds of thousands of views, as well as dropping 2 full-length projects. And the same phase would continue in 2021, as Lit would drop numerous popular songs, with one of the best known and the most infamous being reference to his 16-year-old dead rival called Lil Kev, real name Kevin Harris. He came from a known as 5-6, from the Terrytown neighborhood located right next to the Algiers. Kev's killing on February the 13th, 2021 was caught on security camera, showing someone shooting him in the head from close distance.
Oh my goodness, I forgot I could be showing some of this on YouTube. Hold on.
Himself was involved, but 25-year-old Torrance Robertson would eventually be arrested for the incident.
Yo, hold on. If they hit me with it, they hit me with it. Oh well.
Which investigators later determined had stemmed from a drug deal gone wrong. However, a few months later, there would be another murder in Terrytown, interestingly only 0.2 miles from where Lil Kev was killed, and this time, AIA Lit was allegedly right in the middle of it. On the 2nd of May 2021, at around 5:45 p.m., 18-year-old Cardell Preston was walking in the 2900 block of Monterey Court South when a car would pull up and 2 shooters stepped out open fire, with police finding him soon after laying on the ground with fatal gunshot wounds.
Deputies need your help finding whoever shot and killed a man in Terrytown late this afternoon. Officers got to a house on South Monterey Court just before 6 p.m. when they declared the victim dead at the scene. Investigators have yet to share his identity or a motive. They ask anyone with information in this case to call Crime Stoppers. That's at 504-822-1111.
During the rest of 2021, the police would actively investigate this murder and arrest altogether 5 people in total. One of these being AIA Lit himself, who was arrested in June, and as the youngest of the arrestees, being only 17 at the time, back then his name and the charges were initially withheld from the public. But then in January 2022, he would be charged as an adult for being one of the alleged 2 shooters in the case. However, as seems normal in Louisiana, Lit was still given a bond despite his serious charges, and in September 2022, YouTuber Say Cheese, aka Sean Cotton, would apparently be the person who paid Lit's reportedly $500,000 bond, and he would welcome him home with a post saying he was being accused of a murder that he didn't commit. Following Lit's release, Sean Cotton aimed to work with him to help build his music career, and according to Cotton himself, they would be negotiating a deal with one of the biggest hip moguls in history and New Orleans legend, Birdman. But unfortunately, Lit's big plans for his careers would be hampered by the fact that he wasn't allowed to leave the state, something that would turn out to be a curse as the homicide rate was peaking and the city of New Orleans was earning the grim title of America's murder capital in 2022.
And me and Birdman was supposed to link up together and partner on him. But he couldn't leave the state.
One thing, bro, if y'all don't know Sean, bro, when this man talk, bro, shut up and freaking listen, bro. Cause this man be giving game. You need to listen, bro. Like, I listen when this nigga talk, bro.
So you know how New Orleans is.
You stuck in your
New
hood.
Orleans last year was the murder capital. New Orleans was.
Damn.
New Orleans, Louisiana was the murder capital.
But nonetheless, after getting bailed out, Lit seemed determined to take his music career to the next level, releasing several music videos in quick succession, all of them receiving tens or even hundreds of thousands of views. And he would also drop several full-length musical projects. His formula was working, and coming into 2023, Lit's music videos were now consistently breaking hundreds of thousands of views, while he was also starting to collaborate with popular artists in other cities, like the rapper Real Bleeder from Baton Rouge. But then, in April 2023, everything would come crashing down once again, as police would catch AIA Lit in traffic in a stolen car, triggering a foot chase, And when he and two other men were finally caught, officers discovered drugs and guns in their possession.
More information tonight about what led to a very large police presence, as well as a school lockdown in a neighborhood in New Orleans East.
Apparently, there have been some arrests as well. Whitney Miller joining us now live from the scene. Whitney, what can you tell us?
Yeah, the scene has died down much here. I'm on the corner of Dwyer and Bullock, but the police presence is just one vehicle now. We did learn that a possible stolen vehicle sparked all of this. Just take a look at the video we shot of police surrounding this neighborhood off of Bullock just a few hours ago. Police just told me this whole scene was a result of a possible stolen vehicle, and police spotted it in this area. And when they approached, several people exited the vehicle and ran. There was a chase on foot. We watched as two teens were arrested. Police tell me they made a perimeter around the neighborhood, and that's how they were able to catch up with the third suspect.
This time around, a judge would find Litt to be a danger to the community and would order him to be held without a bond. And to make matters worse, he and one of the other men were eventually hit with a federal indictment over the drugs and guns that they had been caught with. In March 2024, Litt would end up making a plea deal with the feds, receiving a 6.5-year sentence, which is set to run concurrently with another case that he has at the state level in the New Orleans parish. And consecutively with the case he has in Jefferson Parish, this being the murder case which is still open, all this means that if found guilty, Litt could very well end up spending the rest of his life in prison. By now, you'll probably have noticed that there is a clear pattern going on over there. Two extremely talented young street rappers build up serious momentum in the local scene and just start getting buzz outside of their city, only for their careers to come crashing down, all as a result of their connections to the streets. Sadly, when you come from a place as violent as New Orleans, way too many talented young rappers end up ruining their lives at the very moment when it seems like they're about to make it out. However, in our final story, the outcome would be even darker, because one rising rapper who repped the very same neighborhood where Lil Wayne grew up wouldn't end up in prison at all. Instead, just as his career was about to take off after signing with the very same label Lil Wayne did, he would end up being killed in cold blood in his own hood. And according to some rumors, his murder may well have even had something to do with the man who signed him, Birdman.
Desmond Jerome was gunned down last night as he went to secure a deal for an upcoming concert. Michael Patterson was a mentor and friend and was shocked to learn Jerome was fatally shot at 11:15 Saturday night at this gas station in the 9200 block of Airline Highway.
Now, there's a couple of places where once rappers get buzzed, if they stay there, man, they usually do two things. They either lose their way or lose their life, okay? Louisiana is unfortunately part of that list, okay? Now we gotta add another name to the list. BTY Youngin, a rapper out of New Orleans who just got signed to Birdman, okay? The hand rub wasn't even done yet, okay?
When it comes to rappers who died for the streets of New Orleans, the story of BTY Youngin, real name Desmond Jerome, might just be the most tragic in the history of New Orleans rap, and possibly the most devastating loss of potential since the murder of Soulja Slim in 2003. He would be widely regarded as one of New Orleans' most promising rap prospects of the last decade, and while Youngin would go on to rep particularly Holly Grove, the place where he would ultimately lose his life, his story began in 1989 in the section of the 17th Ward known as Pigeon Town. Here, his hood around Hickory General Ogden was known as Baccatown, with BTY literally standing for Baccatown Youngin. However, when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans in 2005, devastating floods would completely destroy parts of the city. This caused him and his family, as well as many other people, to relocate to Houston, Texas. Here, Youngin, still a teenager at the time, along with many other youngsters, would bring with them the mentality of the New Orleans street, which according to many media sources at the time, created a new crime wave as New Orleans gangs spilled into Houston. One day while he was living in Texas, Youngin's wild lifestyle would catch up with him and nearly cost him his life in a chaotic chain of events. While rapping with a group of people, he would instinctively pull a gun from his waistband to emphasize his lyrics, but the sudden movement caused another person to react defensively, which in turn prompted a third person to draw their weapon, opening fire, hitting Youngin 5 times. As one of the people involved would later tell the Rari Report YouTube channel.
Man, I go, he go, I go again. Then I just remember he sang for that rap and he coming up with that beat. And I must have had looked off for a split second, cause when I'm looking back, boom, I'm seeing that bit come up. And I went.
And I was asking, was he still fluent when he pulled it?
Yeah, like it was like part of the rap. Like he wasn't, like knowing now, like knowing the whole situation, he wasn't trying to do nothing. That was some shit that I done did before, but amongst us. Like I knew you and you knew me and you doing it. I probably spit it, man. Look at this rap. You hang with that fresh back food. But you my partner, so you thinking when this gun coming out is to do you something. But I don't know you. Yeah, I'm just looking at you and like, man, who this is? And then you come.
So you and Youngin was just meeting?
Yeah, that was our first time ever meeting each other. My partner go to hitting. Youngin get hit 5 times. Yeah.
Fortunately, Youngin survived this accidental shooting and would later recount just how close he had come to losing his life that day.
Pulled myself back up the stairs. Back up the stairs, I just walked down and laid down on the living room floor like, I'm like, y'all take my clothes off, like cause my body hot, like, you know, them when niggas say them bullets burn, them bitches really burn, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, man, y'all take my fucking clothes off. They took my clothes off. I ain't never panicked not one time, but I hear moms, this the only thing was getting me though, you hear me? I hear moms on the phone with the ambulance people, and all I'm hearing is her saying, I can't hear what they saying, but by me hear her saying, he a black man. He's 16, like, you know, that's letting me know what type of questions they asking.
Yo, did Say Cheese record this in the mall?
You know, I'm about to die. Like, this what the fuck they talking about, like, you know what I'm saying?
But after New Orleans recovered from Hurricane Katrina, Youngin would return to the city and start his rap career.
That crazy, bro. Buddy got shot while trying to do a rap.
Together with another 17th Ward rapper called Misdemeanor. But Youngin would also stay active in the streets, and already that same year, he was arrested and charged with a double homicide. Based on the offense date, it seems that these murders took place near the corner of Green and Hollygrove, which is within the same block as the corner of Hickory and General Ogden, where Youngin actually hailed from. The alleged motive of this incident isn't clear, but the victims were 33-year-old Kevin Jarrow and 23-year-old Burnell Brock, whose lifeless bodies were found 3 hours after the police had already left the scene and taken Jarrow to a hospital, where he too died early the following morning. But despite the extremely serious charges, Youngin would end up beating them the following year, as the prosecution would refuse to indict him, and he would get right back to rapping, dropping a tape called Rider Music, the name coming from a label that he was now repping, the Rider Music Records, or RMR. Unfortunately though, trouble would keep following Youngin, and already in 2011, he was in serious trouble again, as he would be hit with multiple charges, the most serious one being an attempt murder. And this time, Youngin wouldn't be able to get off the hook, as he would eventually take a plea deal, getting convicted of aggravated battery and facing about 3.5 years in prison. Youngin was finally released in 2014, and he would continue where he left off, getting right back to building his music career, this time also beginning to take advantage of the new avenues that social media was creating for artists, like dropping vlogs on YouTube.
That's why I like to see artists in the studio. I like to see stuff like that.
Tupac. You were running from the first, right?
No, let me catch it where I just left off at. You remember on the hook on that?
All right.
Oh, G, you already know. Hickory and G, we right there. Posted up, you understand? This where it all started at. 1738, 1736. Huh?
Yeah, boy.
Up, man. Real talk. I got the whole city on my smack. Real? The whole city on my back. Fresh home out the can.
I want to hear that shit.
Yeah, fresh home. Run some?
I want to hear that shit.
Yeah.
There,
I tell them, I'm like, got some static with some niggas on the other side of town. I don't need a co-defendant for it, hold a lot of rounds. On that OJ shit, hopping out the Bronco. Bring them war, sling them raw like Griselda Blanco.
At this time, Youngin would start to rep a collective and movement known as the 017th, the name being a mix of James Bond's 007 and the 17th Ward, so you know these guys are going to be some trained assassins. This time the number referred particularly to the neighborhood north of Pigeon Town known as Hollygrove, where many of Youngin's partners came from and where Youngin was now also spending a lot of time.
017 was a movement started with Reem and Nesbitt Phipps, and it came up as an idea off a sound of a beat that Phipps made, and it sounded like 007. And by us being from Hollygrove, the 17th Ward, instead of saying, "Ooh, that's some 007 type stuff," it was like, "Oh, this some 017. Oh, 017." And that's where the brand come from, all started.
As I mentioned earlier, this neighborhood is best known for being the childhood home of Lil Wayne.
Could you tell us whereabouts you grew up?
For me, for Lil Wayne, it began in New Orleans, Louisiana, Carrollton, 17th Ward, Hollygrove. What you may call your area, what you may call your village, what you may call your home, that's mine. That's my hood. That's what we call it. That's my everything. I live for that. I die for that. I came from there, and I promise you do not want to go there.
Just like Wayne, who had gotten his start in the rap game in the mid-90s after signing to the New Orleans-originated Cash Money Records, founded by rapper and music mogul Birdman, right as the 2 decades-long friendship between Wayne and Birdman was apparently breaking apart due to a financial disagreement, apparently Birdman became very interested in signing BTY Youngin to his label, with some media at the time calling Youngin Lil Wayne's replacement. Being associated with Cash Money Records gave Youngin a huge bump in virality, with even mainstream media like Billboard starting to do articles on him. He was having a whole lot of motion during this period, and the music videos he dropped in that era have since accumulated millions of views on YouTube. During this time, he would also win the Breakthrough Artist of the Year award at the 2016 NOLA Awards, and he would keep his name viral with several publicity stunts on social media, like walking a dealership to buy a car with cash that he had supposedly received straight from Birdman himself.
Bro, walking into a dealership to buy a car with cash probably feel amazing. But I never do it. Gotta build my credit. Okay, how much money I got? You know I gotta build that credit.
Wrap it up. I told you I was coming with them bands, man. You hear me? Look, you keep the change. You can have the bag too. You hear me? Keep everything.
Man, you just boost their sales, man. Give me my change back.
After all the hardship he had endured in his life, as not only had he become part of the Cash Money crew, but he also ended up becoming a father. But then, right as it seemed that Youngin was about to literally break through to the next stage in life, it would all come crashing down, and this time it wasn't the cops. On the 29th of April 2017, around 11:15 p.m, Youngin made his way into a Shell gas station in the 9200 block of Airline Highway in Holly Grove, where he was supposed to pick up a check for an upcoming show. But here, a white SUV carrying 3 men would pull into the gas station, one of them jumping out and opening fire on Youngin, leaving him dead at the scene.
Well, a man who was picked as NOLA Music's Breakout Artist of the Year is today being remembered as an upcoming rap artist who is devoted to his 2-month-old son. Desmond Jerome was gunned down last night as he went to secure a deal for an upcoming concert. His given name was Desmond Jerome, but as rapper BTY Youngin, friends say he was on the verge of big things.
Once he started making money off of music, you know, that's all his focus was on.
Michael Patterson was a mentor and friend and was shocked to learn Jerome was fatally shot at 11:15 Saturday night at this gas station in the 9200 block of Airline Highway.
In the streets, sometimes when people are trying to, you know, get themselves in a better position, you know, some people don't like to see that.
Friends say Jerome was picking up a check last night for an upcoming concert and was then heading to the studio when an assailant struck him down.
Some of his colleagues were there recording, and it was just a really grim call. It wasn't what we expected.
He was a blessed kid. Like, you know, he just got eliminated before he got his shot to show the world what he can actually do.
In the end, friends say Jerome couldn't escape the city's mean streets and those who envied his success.
Youngin's death was a shock to the city, and dozens of people would show up to his candlelight vigil to pay tribute, while at the same time, the focus would immediately turn on exactly who had been behind the murder, with Youngin's mother and family being convinced that he had been killed due to jealousy. And then something strange would happen, as the person who should have been particularly upset by this loss, Birdman, who had supposedly just signed Youngin to his label, would leave a short tribute to Youngin on Instagram before scrubbing the account empty of any pictures of him. Many considered this move to be highly suspicious, and some fans became convinced at this point that Birdman actually had something to do with Youngin's death, with some claiming that he had done it for a life insurance payment, while others believed ridiculous theories that Youngin had become another Illuminati sacrifice. However, only a few weeks after the murder, the truth would come out, and New Orleans police would arrest a 31-year-old Daryl Dino Bannister for the crime, apparently linking him to a phone that one of the shooters had dropped at the scene. Bannister would claim that the phone had been stolen from him, but the police claimed that they found evidence that contradicted that story. A few months later, the police announced they were also looking for another person of interest in relation to the murder, 27-year-old Kyron Williams. He would later be arrested based on DNA found on the phone that was left at the scene. Meanwhile, the local news reported how Youngin had gone on Instagram Live on the day of his murder, taunting his unnamed rivals to confront him at the gas station, the exact spot where he would actually end up losing his life, with the cops saying that his murder was very much likely the direct result of this local rivalry that turned deadly. However, while the police were seemingly getting results, since the very beginning of the investigation, the local news media would also note how there were some shortcomings related to the evidence. They would point out how one commissioner had apparently rejected the requested arrest warrant for Bannister twice due to lack of evidence before another commissioner finally gave the green light. And in the end, almost a year after the murder of one of the most promising rappers New Orleans had seen in decades, the DA would ultimately decide to drop all the charges against both suspects, with prosecutors giving very little information about the reasoning behind the decision, only saying how their decision was based on the totality of evidence available. Today, the murder of BTY is still unsolved, but it remains a tragic reminder of just why there have been so few rappers from New Orleans to break out from the streets into the mainstream music game. Sadly, most of them unfortunately seem to end up dead or in jail before they can reach the top. However, there are some reasons to be hopeful about the future of New Orleans rap, as the city is apparently undergoing the greatest decline in crime, including homicides.
That's wonderful, man. We about to get a next YB out.
At or below any year since 1970, which I think is a success story.
New Orleans murder count hit its lowest point in decades. A local crime analyst says that other types of crime are also on the decline.
And as Andres Fuentes reports, it's a trend that started years ago.
Counting up until Monday, New Orleans has seen 55 of what NOPD classifies as murders so far this year. It's a tragic statistic, but something the city hasn't seen in decades.
You're talking about one of the lowest levels in 50-something years.
Jeff Asher with the New Orleans data company AH Datalytics says that the number of murders so far is historically low, especially when you consider that number includes the 14 lives lost in the New Year's Day terror attack.
Your odds of being a crime victim have gone down substantially.
Asher says his numbers show the current decline started in early 2023. That's also when crime in general started to slow down across New Orleans.
The decline in murder rates is not just affecting New Orleans, but the entire of the United States, which apparently experienced the largest drop in murders on record in 2025. And while the reasons behind this decline are not yet fully understood, one can only hope that this trend continues as long as possible, giving more talented rappers the chance to leave the New Orleans streets behind them and turn their pain into successful music careers before they lose their lives being on either side of the gun. But in the end, it seems like most of the motion in the music game has shifted from New Orleans to Louisiana's original capital, Baton Rouge, where YoungBoy has now proven to the world that you don't need to come out of the biggest city in the state to become the biggest rapper there, and also proving that even coming from the most dangerous corners in Louisiana, you can still make it to the top with your life and your freedom. So to wrap up this video, I've traveled about an hour away from New Orleans to Baton Rouge. I'm at 38th and Chippewa, which you probably already know is the birthplace of NBA YoungBoy, who arguably took the crown from Lil Wayne as far as being the most relevant and successful rapper coming out of Louisiana in this recent generation. And as you can already tell from everything we've discussed in this video, it's very clear that YoungBoy and his 4K Trey crew's influence spreads all over Louisiana to New Orleans and America as a whole. I am the biggest fan of YoungBoy, and I'm so proud of everything that he's achieved, and it just goes to show you just how influential New Orleans, Louisiana, and Baton Rouge music has come all over the world. I hope you found this video interesting, and thank you so much for watching. I'm out.
Tuned in. Hey, man. Friends on the tube, bro. I'm gonna get at y'all on the next one, man.